Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I am your host, Caleb Nelson, and I have the super power couple, Barry and Laura Ash, or Laura and Barry Ash, however you want. I saw on your thing, I'm like, it's Laura and Barry Ash, but Barry and Laura Ash. We were just talking about who wears the pants a second ago, or at least who chooses the pants. So we don't know. Guys, I love you. I've been so excited since you booked on the schedule for this. Thank you for just being part of the show today.
You're
welcome.
Thanks
It's
for having us.
Here.
And as you can see, she talks over me all the time. No, it's an honor to come on and speak to you guys. And bring my wife with me as well.
Well said. Well said. Oh my God. If I already didn't have enough joy in my life right now, you guys just took it to an 11. So thank you for that. Oh, much as I just told you, I don't have a structure to the show. There is only one thing I really like to check the box on. And I start every episode with why I appreciate my guest, because I am on a mission for what I would call world inner peace. But I believe it starts with telling each other why we appreciate and love each other. So to that effect, as we were just hopping on here, you guys are talking about this cosplay season that's upon you, but the next words out of your mouth are about, wow, we're going to go help with this children's benefit, whatnot. You guys are so like amazing and creative and like awesome about that. But like the way you're using this, kind of this figurehead idea, this idea of superhero powers to bring some joy to these children, to uplift them, to love them. We need people who are going to be willing to have some fun, be playful, because kids don't give a shit. Kids want to have fun. It makes me think about Patch Adams right now. He's in the.
We were going to watch that last night, weren't we?
Oh, well, there we go. See, that was a premonition. That was a premonition that we got to go Patch Adams. Whenever I need a good cry, by the way, I do like Patch Adams, Good Will Hunting, and what's the other Robin Williams movie that I'll do? Sometimes is What Dreams May Come.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
I don't go too Mrs. Doubtfire is great, but I don't go into that one too much. There's also Bicentennial Man, but whenever I need a good cry, I go through like this series of Robin Williams movies. It makes me laugh, makes me cry, but Patch Adams is always on there. Anyway, to mention that kind of persona to love and to bring joy to people who are truly in their darkest hour, being a little silly, being a little playful, being a little fun as my dog enters the arena. And getting silly because you asked when the most important person was going to come to the show. Guys, that's why I love and appreciate you, aside from the fact that you're just awesome people who are vulnerable and amazing and just a beautiful power couple in general. So thank you for being that. Tyson, you want to come here? You want to join the party?
Yes.
Yes. Well, there we go. See, you're wearing the pants from the other side of the ocean. Here we go. But that's what I wanted to share with you. And here we go. We got the little man into the screen.
Oh,
there he is.
hey, Tyson.
We got it. Waves right there. Anyway.
It's like a little Ewok.
I know, he's gorgeous, isn't he?
Isn't he like a little Ewok? My wife doesn't like Star Wars, which that I'm working on. Okay. But I want to dress him up for Halloween. And that is so far out of character for me wanting to dress my dog up. But there he is. Little man.
Yeah, amazing.
Anyway. Yeah, you guys are just awesome. You have just like this amazing energy about you. And I'm just grateful for you being in my life.
Well, welcome.
Snap.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Guys, we don't need anything else for this podcast. Just go be friends with them. And that's all we need. No, you guys are awesome. Well, let's do this. You guys know yourself better than I. So how about you both introduce yourself and share with the world, who are you?
Would you like to go first?
No, I will allow you to go first.
That was awesome.
So we are Laura and Barry Ash. We are a husband and wife team. We've been together for 22 years this year.
About that.
Better not
21
mess that up.
years.
Better not mess that up.
Ever.
Yeah, and married for... Work it out, babe.
17 years.
17 years this year.
That was a pretty epic test right there.
Yeah,
You didn't see my fingers doing this under the screen.
Is this a trick question?
Yeah. And we run our business, Rock Solid Health. We're based in the UK, down in Folkestone in Kent, looking over the Channel Tunnel. which is a tunnel that goes from England to France,
And on a good day, we can actually see France,
which is amazing.
which is
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
really cool, especially at night. You see all the twinkling lights. We actually met when we was 3 and 4 years old. That's when we actually met. Yeah. Yes. But we didn't start dating until we were like 21, 22. And you know what it's like when you meet someone new, you're like, where'd you go to school? Where, you know, who are your friends? And you're kind of like finding out and that kind of stuff. And Baz was like, I went to school at the YMCA in Dover, and we kind of were talking, and we kind of figured out that we actually used to play together as kids. Guess what we used to play? A superhero thing, The Amazing
Stop.
Adventures of Spider-Man. I was Firestar, I don't know if you remember it, and Baz was Iceman, and then his friend was Spider-Man. And so, yeah, we actually used to play superheroes when we were younger, which is so crazy, right?
My mind is blown right now. What?
Yeah. There you go. So the superhero theme runs deep within the Ashes, like deep. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Wow. Keep
You weren't
going.
expecting
I'm
that
in like
one.
complete shock. That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like life coming full circle over and over again.
Kept that
And,
one in the
and
back pocket.
literally, I was working in the gym when I was 22, and you just walked in and we started chatting, and bam, the rest is history.
Yeah. So I mean, you
Within, I think, was it within a month of us dating, I booked a holiday for me, Loz, and my mum
yes.
to travel Australia for 7 weeks. And my mum was like, no, you can't do that. I said, yeah, she's the one. I know it. I knew it. And literally from there, we backpacked around Australia for 7.5 weeks.
Yep. And we got engaged, didn't we?
Got engaged out there. And
yeah. So
Wow.
it's kind of come full circle, really. So we've been together for a long time. We've both been through so many changes together. We've grown, but we've grown together. We've not grown apart, which I think a lot of couples can do. Because we both believe in the same things.
yeah, it just gets stronger and stronger every time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
We started our business because I was medically retired. So I spent 10 years within the local police force. So I did like section, which is like, where you respond to calls in a fast car, big car, go fast, that kind of thing, which I loved.
And that's how she spoke to the prisoners. I'm in big car going fast.
And I really wanted to do the tactical stuff. So I wanted to do TAC team, I wanted to do dogging, I wanted to do firearms.
You had Nino lights as well, didn't you?
Nino, big car, big flashy, go fast. But unfortunately, I got diagnosed with bipolar in 2009 and OCD, and that kind of crushed all my dreams of wanting to be a firearms officer and also being in the police long term, because all of the shift work, the adrenaline, it just wasn't cutting it. And my final role was within counter-terrorism intelligence. So I was dealing with a lot of intel in terms of counter-terrorism in the area, both international threats and also national threats, like local threats as well. But it just got to the point where I just couldn't do my job anymore. And in September 2012, I went to see the force medical doctor, and he said to me, look, you either medically retire yourself or we do it for you. So I chose to do it myself. And then it took them through to the next June, the 1st of June, to medically retire me. And we started Rock Solid on the 2nd of June with a full book of clients ready to go. I didn't want to be self-employed. They did say, would you like to be a civilian within the police? And no disrespect to the civilians, they're bloody amazing. I just couldn't do it. So there I was, 33 years old, medically retired, mental health issues. I couldn't see anybody giving me a job. So that's why we decided to set up Rock Solid. But you was
I've been in the fitness industry since I can remember. So I started, as I met Loz when I was working in the gym. I spent 7 years doing that. Then I jumped ship and I became a prison officer. I spent 3 years walking the landings, looking after the needs of all the prisoners. But then I still had that burning desire. You probably know about, I've got to do my exercise. I've got to do my fitness. I've got to help people with their health and their well-being. So within our prison service system, you can actually specialize as what we call a PTI, a physical training instructor. So I got myself qualified. It was 16 weeks at the National Sports Centre, and I spent the next 7 years in the gymnasium in the jails, teaching all the prisoners to become personal trainers, fitness instructors, sports therapists alike. And then when Loz got medically retired, I just said, let's jump ship and let's just see where we go with this journey of ours with Rock Solid. And
well, we had that pivot point, didn't we?
yeah,
because it was, we opened in June and Baz was working prison service and then coming home and doing Rock Solid stuff. And we were both doing it. And it come to about September and we were like, what do we do? Do I have this as a little project, a little hobby just to bring some money in? Or do we go balls deep with it? And your job was getting more and more dangerous, wasn't it? Really, to be honest.
They just kept cutting staff. And I found myself opening the gym up by myself some days with sort of 60 to 100 prisoners by myself. And I was just like, this is getting a bit touch and go now. And then we get called off to do other things. And there was no stability really in there. So I just made the decision to jump ship and go, as Loz said, balls deep into Rock Solid. And the 10 years has flown past. We've experienced some amazing things on this 10-year journey so far. And that's our aim, is just to have experiences and change people's lives through what we do.
So there you go. That's us in a kind of nutshell.
Wow. As if I didn't know I could love you guys even more, but you just topped it. Wow. What was really striking to me in this story is that both of you seeing different ends of the spectrum within the law enforcement world, like after and before, like lockup, in prison.
Do you know what the crazy thing was? Is when somebody would come into the gym and they'll go, Officer Ash, are you? No, I don't know Laura at all. I don't know PC 11985 Laura Ash at all. So like some of them were being nicked by Loz and they were coming in, they was trying to put the pieces together. If they found out that was the connection, I think my life would have been a little bit tougher in the job.
Well, yeah, I can only imagine that that's a touch and go situation right there. But what I'm curious about in all of this, especially what seems to be so powerful and so motivating with, as we just started this episode, is like you guys are just like bringing all this love and attention to children, people that go down this path of crime and disobedience, whatever you want to call it. You look back and you always find like something's going down in their childhood every time. I'm bringing this up because I'm remembering it was maybe a TED talk or some presentation, and it was on the death penalty. And on the death penalty is a broad statement, but the way the guy presented is like, I'm not here to debate what you think about the death penalty, whether it's correct or incorrect. He said, what you need to think about is you're missing the point. If you really want to, if you want to lessen the probability of this, you need to go back and look at the environment in which they grew up in. So to me, it's really interesting to see what both. I mean, I have a friend in prison right now. He actually killed a guy. He was my college roommate, and I've been talking to him. We didn't talk for about 8-9 years, maybe close to 10 years, and I've more or less been kind of coaching him through his guilt, through a little bit through his health. He has a health background, but coming back to the body and using the body as you guys are your chosen profession about bringing health and wellness back to people. Sounds a little bit serendipitous as we're talking about all this, like all these things kind of coming together. I'm really intrigued about what you've observed from your we'll call it your police life, and how it kind of drew you into this health stuff. And what your observations were from that, because I think it's so fascinating that people don't see that, and go figure, like you guys got pushed out by like highly stressful situations, emotional or mental, diagnoses, on top of holy shit, I'm watching terrorism and like profoundly dangerous things going on in the world. That's not lightly stressful at all. Or, oh my God, I'm the only person here with a bunch of people who might have an axe to grind with me. This is also highly stressful. Let's go take a step back. So I'm going to shut up for a minute. I don't know what you guys took out of any of that, but like whatever came to mind, I want to just hear you guys break down some of that, because I think there's so much in this. perhaps challenging space for people to discuss. And it seems like you guys are kind of finding a way out of that for people.
Yeah, and the one thing I found out when I moved from walking the landings with the prisoners to working actually in the gym and starting to get into know, the more they exercise, the more they got use of our physical body, the better they were at dealing with all the stresses within the prison system themselves. They become more resilient, more tolerant to the demands that were put on the prisoners, because it's they're away from their families, they're isolated. So the more they worked on their body, the more they could work on their mind, and they transitioned through their sentence a lot better when they was actually working on their body. And the same with the prison officers, the staff members, the fitter ones would be able to deal with the resilience, have better resilience to deal with the stresses of the job than those who didn't, who just sit there smoking the fags and eating the pies and what have you. They dealt with stress in a totally different way to the people who actually looked after the physical body.
But also, when we talk to a lot of our clients, we talk about purging, and in terms of, you know, getting rid of stuff, but also living it in an environment which is tidy, you know. And you always tell the story about, you know, prisoner cells, don't you?
Yeah, we every morning when you walk on the landings, we do what we call an AFC, accommodation fabric check. So we go around to every single cell just to make sure they haven't been digging a hole like Shawshank Redemption behind the pictures. So we do that every single morning when we walk on the landings, and sometimes you do it in the afternoon, just random checks on the cells. But what you'd find is the people who Gov, take your shoes off before you come in. And it's like, no, I'm not taking my shoes off. But they were that proud of their cell and it was that clean. They would fly through their sentence. They would read their books. They would educate themselves. They would learn languages. They would come to the gym, and they was really productive in what they were doing to better themselves. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you go into like a cell rat, and they would sleep or medicate themselves through their whole sentence. And like, oh, you have to wipe your feet on the way out of their cells. That's how bad it was. And they didn't address their offending behavior. They didn't work on themselves. They didn't try to better themselves. So they was in this system of just going out, coming back in the prison, going out, coming back in the prison. And this was down to their cleanliness, their tidiness, and their respect for their living environment. So it makes a massive difference when we treat our environment we live in with the same respect as we treat our body. Game changer.
Definitely. Yeah. And I know, even, you know, for myself, you know, arresting youths and dealing with youths and all that kind of stuff. The problem is, not only will you see it in the youth, the behavior, you'd also see it in the parents 9 times out of 10. And, you know, a lot of the time it is the inability to control or understand emotions, which a lot of us, I think, are guilty of until we go down the PD route, when we understand that an emotion is just something that we experience and it's not who we are and it's there for a reason and blah, 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 that kind of thing. And so, you know, it's really interesting to see how emotion can really get someone out of, you know, control, basically, and into some of the situations that they get into.
These are the things that kind of just came to mind as you're talking about this. I'll start with my reflections on what you're saying about the prison cell. I think it's a great allegory to, you know, not everybody listen. In fact, probably most people that are not listening to this, because mostly it's entrepreneurs, but like, people become a prison, like their life becomes a prison to them, and they're just imprisoned by their own box of their mind, of their own ideas.
Yeah.
And that's where they've talked about, you know, make your bed. You brought that up. Like, most people think it like, oh, I'm going to make my bed, it's going to change my life. It's not about making the bed. It's what you were talking about. It's more about, I'm having respect for my environment, but secondarily, it's also building confidence in yourself to be capable of something. Because I got to imagine, in any conversations you guys are having with people, they probably usually have really low confidence. They're actually quite insecure. And a lot of this outward aggression is a consequence of lack of self-worth. So they try to make themselves bigger, more explosive, more whatever, fearful, dangerous, because that way somebody else can't control them. But by reframing, making something so easy, something so simple as make your bed every day or keep your room clean, it's more about building the small habits and the confidence underneath that. So that's what I was hearing of that. And then also just feeling, I mean, at the end of the day, your room is your body. Your body is that. It's this temple that, how do you take care of it? Go figure. If you don't, probably affects all the other things in your life. So that piece really stuck out to me, that I think especially business owners who start to feel like trapped by their current thing, or a parent or whatever, they feel like they're trapped in this identity. As I've been talking with my own friend who's in prison, he's like, I'm trapped by my guilt of my past. And it's like, well, that's not who you are. That was a thing you did.
Yeah.
How do you step outside of that? How do you come back to who you truly are? Well, you need to face some shit. If the first thing you're facing is always a messy room, well, you still have to do that thing before you sit in a space that's clear enough for you to be honest with yourself, to sit with the real problem.
Yeah.
And as you say, making the bed every single morning, we can do it in our lives, or they can do it in their prison lives, or whatever it is taking an actionable thing to move yourself forward in developing yourself. And that one little thing you do, you think, yeah, I achieved that. And it's simple as making your bed. It's an achievement. You get a euphoric feeling, a dopamine kick from doing that. And that leads to the next thing. And then that leads to the next thing. And by the time you know it, they started making their bed, the next thing they're doing, they're learning a foreign language, or they're doing a degree within prison service to better themselves. And it's these small stepping stones, but it starts with one thing, and that one actionable thing can be making your bed, or putting your shoes tidy underneath the thing, or whatever it may be. One action.
But also, I love what you said there about identity, because I've just been having conversations this week with so many people who are burnt out, and they have this I am attached to them. I am weak. I am someone who cannot cope. And when I say to them, okay, so what is it you want to create? How else do you want to feel? And all they start talking about is what's gone on. And I'm like, do you see that? Until you understand that you're here, and this is the I am statement you've got here, and what you want to create, and start embracing that new I am statement, you're always going to stay here, trapped within this identity, as you say, in that prison. And so you're so right about identity, and I love doing work like that. And we often think that we are who we are, and that's just who I am. And it's like, no, it's not. You weren't born like that. You were born with joy and confidence and all this kind of stuff. It's just circumstances, events, assumptions, opinions that you've taken on.
You're stuck in your rucksack and you're carrying around with you.
Exactly. And you can take some of that shit out.
I think so many people feel so guilty around taking some of that shit out. There's like, I need to carry this weight of the past. I'm bad. I'm terrible. Can I be forgiven? It's like,
but also, if I'm not that, what am I? That's scary. So I'll just stay here. Thank you.
Yeah. I've got a lady at the moment. She's coming close to losing 10 stone. And I'm like, how you feeling? She goes, I'm really excited, but I'm so scared. I'm so scared because I don't know what's around the corner. When I get to my 10 stone mark, I'm like, who am I going to be? So I can see this sabotage starting to creep in. And so we're managing her sabotaging this journey while we're picking herself up. And it's a juggling act at the moment to keep her balanced so we can keep moving forward. And as you say, when we change our identity, we've got to first think about, what is this new identity that I want? So we've got a place to head for. We got this thing we can create for ourselves, rather than holding on to that old identity that's got us to where we are now. And it's not a bad thing. It's got us to where we are now.
Well, that speaks to the foundation, because most people are not, all people really see is the outside, but they don't see that you're building a house of cards without a real foundation underneath it. And it is this identity. I am this, I am that. Or, well, if all you're saying is, I am not this, I am not obese, I am not fat, I am not whatever, I'm not a piece of shit, whatever the thing is, you're still putting the word out that, like, that's all you're thinking of. You can't not think about something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's a hard one. In my experience, it's just like, cool. So what's the exact opposite of that? Try for that for a little bit. But also you have to soften that a bit and say, we're going to try that identity on for size for a little bit, see how it feels. What do you like? And it's not the end, which I think is really hard for most people, especially I would say a younger demographic, because everything is fluid and I want to feel like I got shit sorted out in my life and people know who I am and I have all the accolades and and I'm like, shit, why are you trying to get to the end of life? Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to know that stuff till you're dead. And then they're going to write it on your tombstone for you or your obit. Like, you want to die that quickly, or just like, how do you live and enjoy that process?
Yeah.
Could you take me through a little bit how you coach somebody through that space? Because that, I think, is the most dangerous spot that people are not aware of. It's like that Olympic athlete who has been training for years and finally gets the gold medal and they get to the top and they're like, this is not all I thought it was going to be. Well, who am I now?
Yeah.
And then there's, you see people torch themselves after they've won the lottery or whatever it is. Take me through a little bit of that really sketchy phase, because people are not aware of how much success is actually quite dangerous if you don't approach it correctly.
Can we go?
You go and then I'll go.
I think the first thing we need to do is use what we call the reactional gap. It's rather than just go steamrolling through life. Sometimes when we get faced with these situations, we need to take a step back and look from a bigger point of view. So we can say, right, I'm going to go down left one, I'm going to go down the right view. What happens if I go down here? What happens if I go down there? Before we start making any quick fire actions, because when we take these quick fire actions, they're normally based on our previous experiences. And we don't react, we want to respond to these situations. And the way we do that, we take that reaction gap a step back so we can see the bigger picture. And that's where I always start with our guys. Slow down. Let's just take this journey one day at a time. We don't have to get to that end destination straight away. It's about just chill.
I like to get straight in there.
Let's go fuck around. Let's just figure this shit out. Let's go.
Like, I have something called the limiting belief self-buster that I do with some of our guys, which I've used actually for some of my things, especially around money and deserving and that kind of thing. And so it all starts with 3 columns on a page. On the far left-hand column, you write down all the I am statements. I had to do this as a police officer. I am PC 11985. I am bipolar. I am OCD. I am not a business owner. I am useless with numbers. I am not deserving. All the I ams that you say, right? And then in the middle, you write down where that came from, right? So a lot of the time it's going to be your parents. Let's face it, all the parents out there, you will screw up your kids and that's okay, right? That's not a problem.
Teachers, friends.
And also, yeah, teachers, a big one as well will be teachers.
You teachers.
So, and it's going to happen, right? Because everybody's different at the end of the day. And so you write down where that comes from. And I think when you realize, I realized, like, for example, I am a terrible runner, for example. We've had that before with people. I cannot run. And who has that come from?
Phoebe from Friends.
Where has that come from? Is, well, in school, I was picked last. I wasn't athletic in school. And it's like, right, okay, well, then that's the past, isn't it? That's where that's come from. And I think that's a really enlightening moment when someone can realize when they've attached that I am statement. Do you know what I mean? And then what we do is we then get them to create their new I am statement, right? So I am free. I am a runner. I am able to move my body, you know, whatever it is for you. And then every single day I get them to read those and instill them. One great thing that I've also got them to do is read out their new I am statements, pair it with some theta music, and when they go to bed at night, they listen to it. And it's just a practice of going through that and then coming up and saying, yeah, I see that, but I have a little bit of difficulty flipping that and switching that. And it's just about making them understand that it is simply something that they've stuck to them. I get a little Wonder Woman lamp that I've got and it lights up. And I always say to them, this is you, this is your name. This is, you know, your, like your parents just named you a name. It's not who you are. Like, I'm Laura, this is Barry. It's just a name that someone's given to us. It's not, I could go and change it. We've got a client that changed her name to Tina Tallulah Maria Bombina. Love it, right? You can change your name. You can call yourself anything you want, right? And once you start to open yourself to that, it's exciting, but it can be scary as well. So that's kind of like the very first starts of how we would deal with something, you know, with people.
So to kind of recap what I was hearing there, one side of it is slow down and zoom out. You got to get a better lay of the land. And what I was hearing there is that it provides you with more options. And I'm going to assume it's like, oh, there's lots of good options. Let's just remove some of the bad options. You're talking about like, let's not react. Let's respond with clarity. So probably get rid of the bad options there. Keep only the good ones. Oh, no, any path you take is fine, and we'll do the same thing again. So that's what I heard there. And then with you, Laura, I'm hearing is like, oh, get everything on the table. Let's go. Like, how do you really think about yourself? And you brought up the past stuff again. It's now the second time you're talking about that with you know, having to arrest like younger kids, like people, younger criminals, whatever, that kind of stuff. Every time it comes back to what was their environment coming up, growing up, parents, teachers, other adults around them, societal influences. What are what's the language and identity you're strapping to yourself to at this early age? One thing I wanted to bring out, I'm familiar vaguely about theta stuff, but like for anybody listening, what was the attachment there? Theta music or sounds, whatever, as well with you're pairing that with essentially affirmations. Probably that's what
when you go into a hypnotic state, so Barry and I also do a method called control, where we get to talk to somebody's subconscious directly to change the thing that they're doing. But when we take them down into trance, and when the mind is most open to suggestion, you go into what we call theta brainwaves, which is where the brainwaves start to slow down. And that's usually, you know, before you go to sleep, you're kind of slowing down from alpha, beta, that kind of stuff into theta.
It's in that dream state, sort of daydreaming kind
you're
of
more
sleep.
open to suggestion. That's what that is all about. So yeah, so we use that when we've put someone in trance or whatever.
And sleep.
And yeah, I've programmed Baz. No, I haven't really. It's fine.
Well, the reason I bring that up, I think not enough people understand like that theta state is essentially where hypnosis takes place. But piggyback on top of that, from like 0 to 7, that's essentially where children's brains kind of flow around in. So guess what's been happening? They've been in essentially a constant state of hypnosis, hence why all these things are locked in. We spend our life, if you choose to, essentially unwind all that shit.
Up to around about 7 or 8 years of age, where they're like sponges in the theta, and they have got no map of reality. And what we're doing there from the age of 0 to 7 is we're just building this map of reality up, what their environment's telling them, what life is actually about. And we have to go back into theta, we have to go back into that hypnosis thing, or we imagine, or we get emotional to actually get into that subconscious to start changing our beliefs and our values.
When we talk about the map of reality, the way that Barry and I kind of explain it to our clients, as he said, you know, from the age of 0 to 7, 8, 9, 10, you're purely in your subconscious. And then around that age, you have your conscious thinking come in, combined with something that hypnotists call the critical faculty, but we like to call it Dave, the security guard. And what Dave is there to do, right, is to maintain a map of reality. Okay, so if I was to say to you, the sky is not actually blue, it's pink with purple dots, that information will come in, Dave will go, that person is wrong, and it will ping back off again because it doesn't match up with your map of reality that you've created. And as Baz says, that can change through emoting or imagining. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Love this. What drew you to this side of the work? Obviously, health and fitness is cool, but like clearly at a certain point, just chucking weights, doing some stretches and talking about food and hydration didn't scratch the whole itch. I'm gonna even go on a limb and say it didn't solve the whole problem. Okay. What tell me what that transition was like, because a lot of people start hearing this stuff and this is fucking woo-woo. Why would you go down this road? Like, you know, work out more and move, like whatever. Like
mine happened and I can remember it. It was like a light bulb. I've trained all my life thinking about getting this ultimate physique, the Men's Health cover magazine, you know, with a ripped 6-pack, obliques coming in, this plate of a chest. And when you get to that point of that physique, you're going to be the man, you know, you're going to get everything you want and feel that euphoric feeling. So I trained my ass off and I got onto that bodybuilding stage in my little Pee Wee Herman trunks. I struck my first pose and I went bang. I looked around and that same voice was in my head talking to me saying, you're not good enough. You're not this. Why are you doing that? Blah, 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 blah. The negative thoughts that I thought would have gone because I've got the physique that I wanted, they were still there. My identity was still there. The way I thought, the way I saw the world was still the same. By changing my body, didn't change the outside world. It didn't change my inner world. It didn't change how I saw it. This is where I thought there's more to this health and well-being than just changing the body. Yeah, looking after the body is fantastic because it changes how we feel in that moment. It makes us more resilient by looking after the body. It makes us more healthy, but it still doesn't change the language and how we talk about ourselves. I see so many people, they've got amazing physique, but they go, yeah, still got this though, still got the muffin top, I still got this fat, and I still got this, and they're looking at the negative things about their body. And I thought, this is crap. We're doing all this work and we're still having that conversation in our head. Got to change. So I started looking at the mind and how we can change our state and feel better and wake up every morning with a positive mental attitude rather than a negative mental attitude.
Yeah. We did notice, you know, when we started, we were called Rock Solid Body Transformations. It was kind of like, you know, the before and after pictures and stuff like that. But we soon realized that, you know, people would do great for 12, 14 weeks, but then things would start to slowly come back in and we were only dealing with one part of the puzzle. And then that's when we started to explore more of the mind stuff. I've always been a very spiritual person. Being in the police for 10 years kind of kicks that out of you. So, you know, then I had to kind of get back into that, you know, and just kind of go back to my natural roots. It's always had a flow. But, you know, when we decided to really go balls deep with burnout was when we almost lost the business in 2017, when I had burnout combined with a massive bipolar episode, and it was just incapacitated, wasn't I? And so that's kind of the point. But I've always personally known it's very much about mindset because, you know, I've always been in that kind of realm of things. But really it started to come true very shortly after we started Rock Solid, wasn't it? So yeah.
And it's great, the body and the mind, when they start coming together and become unison, you are one of the most powerful things on this earth.
Yeah.
When you look after your body, look after your mind, and they come together, wow, unstoppable. You can do so many things that you want to do, achieve so many things. But more importantly, you feel happy, you feel content, you wake up every morning and feel fulfilled. And isn't that what we all want to do? Is to feel happy and fulfilled in life?
Well, I think I have a few reflections on everything you both just said. Like, let me see if I can unpack this properly. First and foremost, people think like being happy is this frivolous pursuit. I don't think so, because I think they're like, oh, I just want, and now there's that surface level happy that everybody's just trying, I just want to be happy. I want a YOLO. That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, he's frozen.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Are you guys there?
We always freeze with a funny face now.
Uh-oh. Oh, there we go.
There it is. Yeah. Oh, it's my internet apparently. Sorry about that.
Well,
you were talking it.
It wouldn't be my internet.
No, it would have been us.
It's me. Mine said it was my internet was unstable. What I was saying before was
the happiness bit. Yeah.
Happiness. There we go. People think of frivolous as like, if happiness is a frivolous thing, and the surface level happiness, I think, is frivolous. Like, I just wanted, it's the shiny cars and all that stuff. And not to say those things aren't cool, but what I have found, and it sounds like you guys feel the same, is that when you are internally happy, you are far more productive and impactful in your work. So it's actually a great trait of a high performer. When you see that person who is playing, let's just use a sport as an example, like when they're in that flow state, they're just happy, they're having fun, they're just living their best, and they're in their element. That's like, to me, that's pure joy. So to understand how to cultivate that, as you're talking about marrying the two things, that's what I think is real happiness. And it is not frivolous. In fact, it is a powerful trait of the highest performer. Now I want to take it back another second because I think this was interesting, and I align with much of what you just said. I think also, Barry, you said it in a similar way, but Laura, what you were talking about, how the police force essentially kind of drove the spirituality out of you. I should preface with this. I don't believe that we have a mental health or a physical health crisis globally. I think that's the symptom of the actual problem. I think the actual problem is a spiritual health crisis. Whatever sect of religion you want to come from, and atheism would be a sect of that as well. I would, at its fundamental form, is a sense of knowing who you are and what your purpose is in this planet, in this lifetime. That would be a very practical sense of spirituality to me. If we don't know who we are and what we're doing with that, we get lost with abundance of information because you don't know how to ground that, and you don't have a reason to take care of the physical being. So you don't have ways to align the physical practice with, like, well, what am I training for? What am I putting my body in a place? This is a quote I'm stealing from somebody. Put your body in a place for your mind to follow. It's like those two things. So what I'm curious about, because you had brought it up about, you know, you're kind of essentially, it felt like you're losing your spirituality in your police work. Can you take me through a little bit what happened there? Because I think that more than most people recognize in their own life, so essentially the same what you're talking about, like flexing on stage, is kind of like, this didn't work out. Like, this is not aligning. Can you share a little bit with that? Because I think a lot of people in a business or in anything fall victim to that same consequence.
I mean, when I joined the police force, I was a completely different person, wasn't I? I was very soft and girly and, you know, very kind of happy-go-lucky and all that kind of, a lot softer, wasn't I, really?
Yeah.
And the police force definitely hardened me up, especially as a female. I think male and female energy, we can be both, but let's just face it, you're a female in a very masculine world. That's it. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day. And you become PC 11985 Laura Ash. You become the job. You become a robot, you know, a number. And even when you're not on duty, you're still on duty. You couldn't just walk past something. If you do, and people know that you've walked past that, especially brass, you could be called in for that, you know. Yeah, and you get.
You mean by brass? You mean like
inspector, sergeant, you know, that kind of thing. You get picked up on that. Like, why did you not do that? It's your duty. You took the oath. Whether you're on duty or off duty, you're always on duty. It's a very demanding role. I'm a very energetic person, and I will pick up on people's energies. And I will say that a lot of the people that we dealt with were bad energies. You know, they were bad energies, because that's the behavior that they were putting off: hate, bitterness, anger, resentment. It was violent,
very low vibrational energy.
Very low vibration if you look on the Hawking scale. And you just go into a program like hypnosis. You go into a program, you get up, you go to work, you deal with the prisoner, you're always dealing with the shit stick end of stuff. And that's who you become at the end of the day. That is who you become, the job. That's what everyone says in it. You become the job.
But I think you talk about spirituality, we talk about mental health, but I think a underlining thing is people don't understand emotions no more. So I think it's more of an emotional health crisis that we're getting, because people are feeling these emotions and they don't know how to deal with them. They don't know how to change from one emotion to another emotion. They think that the emotion that they're feeling at the moment is them. It's not just the thing that we're experiencing as a human being. We're experiencing this motion, and all emotions never last. They always flow in, they flow out, and they come back round again, and we meet it again, and we have that conversation again with that emotion. And I think we got to understand that how we can flow with our emotions and how we can step out of one emotion and into another one. And when we start understanding that, but game changer again.
The thing is, I agree with Caleb as well, because
100%. I agree with you, because I don't want to not agree with you.
But I think it's second to that.
I love this.
Second to that, because I lost who I was, my values as a person, And I see this in a lot of other my clients. It's like, well, who are you then? Because I was just PC 1105 Laura Ash. I was the job. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, but who else are you? Entrepreneurs, they're the work. They're the mum. They're the dad. And it's like, yeah, no. But who are you? What are your values? How do you align? And you lose yourself spiritually as to who you are, you know, within the knowing and everything.
Connection.
And then comes the emotions from that, which for me, the emotion was like, it was out of control. Like I didn't understand any of it, did I at all whatsoever? It was depression, it was mania, it was anxiety, it was all the colours of the rainbow, of the emotional spectrum, and it was in full force. And it was trying to, you know, fight out of me, really. It's, you know, those values that kind of rub.
Oh, I loved how both of you brought that together there. And what it brought to mind was, I think maybe we've talked about this. You ever read the book The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer?
No, I haven't read it yet. I bought The Surrender Experiment because that spoke to me more in that moment.
Yeah. Read it anyway. Even if after what I'm about to say, but there was this one, you've met Ian, Laura, you've met him, and he was the one who recommended it to me, but it was talking about, well, who are you? Same idea here, like that voice in your head. Well, like you cut off your arm, you're still you, right? You feel this feeling. Are you your feelings? Well, no, you eventually walk it back to like, you're just the observer of all of those things. And I think in that space there, what you're talking about, Laura, is who's that observer, but what are the values of that observer? Because then when you choose to engage an emotion that you were talking about, Barry, you're saying like that emotion aligns with where I need to go. And I think that's really important for anybody listening, because people buy with emotions. If your heart is not in it, no matter what you went down, eventually you're going to hit a road. You can convince yourself long enough. You're talking about with the military or the police work. It's like my heart wasn't in it. It happened to be a medical thing, and you were able to self, discharge, but like it was inevitable. When you've lost your sense of self in all of it, and your heart's not behind it, the buying, the emotional purchase, so people talk about like buyer's remorse and all those things. It's a real thing. When you buy fully and then it continues to align with your values, like, oh, okay, my emotions and my values and everything. There's the cat coming in, I bet, right?
And did you hear him? He goes, hello.
No, I couldn't hear a thing. I just watched both of you go, whoop. And like actually, that was great. It was great. I love the way you both brought those things out. And I think it's how do we interface with the emotions? That's the big key here, because we've just kind of lost our sense of self. Like, and most people think like emotions are a bad thing. For the longest time, I shut myself off from anger. That was not healthy, because I wasn't using a very powerful tool. I just needed to know how I was going to use that tool so that I didn't destroy relationships, destroy myself, all those things. So I loved how both of you brought those things out, because once you know how to use the tools, then you can leverage them to your advantage and be ethical about it. Like I think that's a pretty cool place to be. But I love, my head's almost kind of like blowing up right now with everything you both just shared with me. Like, so it's taking a step back. I don't know where any of that landed with you, but thoughts.
What you said just a minute ago really hit a light bulb moment with me. And this is where I started opening up and seeing it from this point of view, is the voices that I'm hearing in my head. That voice is talking to somebody in my head, but I'm observing these conversations going on in my head. So if I'm observing these conversations, I'm not the person having this conversation. So who is this person having the conversation in my head? And I'm like, oh my God. And then I start observing the person, observing the conversation in my head. And I'm starting going, oh my God, this is getting huge.
Babe, it's a Tuesday afternoon. That's too much.
But this went down a rabbit hole for me. And I was just like, then I am not this conversation. I am not the person having this, saying all these things about me. I'm the person observing it. And then I can be the person observing that as well. And it just opens up this universe to a massive thing. And I can understand then that I'm not that emotion. I'm not that identity. I'm just observing what's going on. And I can observe different things in that conversation.
Well, piggybacking on that, that takes it right back to actually one of your great strategies, zooming out, and then finding new options. You just slow
100%.
down. And I think that's what's really cool for anybody who's listening, is that when you do that, you slow down, and then you really which most people don't want to slow down, because you're facing what actually is a very difficult question of like, what do I really want? You have to step back from like, am I trying to win this thing right now because I don't have enough money, or don't look sexy enough, or I don't have whatever? Or it's like, is this thing that I really want to do here and I just don't feel good right now? Or name your thing. It gets you to a better decision. It doesn't solve all your problems. But then, of course, like what you just said, like that's a very meta thing. Like I'm the person who's thinking about the person who's talking to the person about it. Like, and that alone, I mean, that might be terrifying for anybody to explore, because then you can start getting to unified consciousness and God and all that stuff, which is heavy conversations for most people who don't want to go down that road, which is why I love you guys. You're like, yeah, let's roll. And I'm like, sign me up. Let's go. Let's do this. This is not like woo-woo magic crazy stuff. It's kind of practical magic stuff.
Yeah.
Think about as simple as we take a step back, otherwise we focus on problems. As soon as we take a step back and take our space and take the time, we can start thinking about solutions. And this is really practical stuff we can do. If we focus on the problems, we're always going to have a problem. If we focus on the solution, we open ourselves up to any possibility. And if we focus on solutions all the time, then we don't have any problems. I think it takes time to pull ourselves away from the problem to see the solution.
But also it's thinking about thoughts. Like we have 70,000 thoughts a day, but a lot of people would believe their thoughts, but they're not true.
Yeah, more
because
than 70,000.
I do. Because we've all had that thought, which is utterly ridiculous. Like
Tyrannosaurus Rex running out of trees is going to bite me.
Yeah, you don't believe that, do you? Right? You don't believe that one. So why would you believe this one? You know, it's like thoughts are just there. They fly in and fly out. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's for somebody who thinks it's too woo over here. Well, let's focus on this bit then. And thoughts. Every single thought you believe is real, right? Even the Tyrannosaurus Rex. You might need to see somebody about that. I no disrespect, but
A pet shop.
But you know, that's the fact as well there. It's not all your thoughts are necessarily true.
Well, I think that's a very powerful statement there, especially when we're bombarded with information all day long, especially anybody who's stuck in the news feed and the social media feeds, and especially since it's angled to whatever you bought into at one point, especially from your past history, which was basically family and friends who were telling you a narrative, and you bought into that and you're skewed a little bit. Wherever somebody lands on a political or religious spectrum is basically what I was leaning into there.
Yeah.
Whatever dogma you want to ascribe yourself to, I think what you brought out there, we have essentially almost an infinite amount of thoughts every day. And what I would even go so far to say is like, people feel the need that they have to make a decision on each one of those thoughts every day. And it's that reactive, decide, I buy in, like, and usually they're buying into the fear narrative. So with that, I think often they start leading their life with judgment, and they didn't even realize it because it's so pervasive that they can't even see how they're becoming the exact thing that they're despising, because that's usually what they're engaging with, something that's negative, something they hate. You brought that up earlier. Hate, which is essentially insecurity. I'm insecure, so I'm going to judge you and hate you for not being me.
Yes,
but not realizing hypocrisy is a really fucking ugly mirror. You just can't see it in the moment because you're blinded by your rage and the fog that's in between. And there's that whole thing of like people don't see how they could quickly become, the worst person they've ever thought of. Name your dictator, name your atrocity of history, but they feel like they're so far away from that. Mm-hmm. But not realizing in their own microcosm, they're behaving the exact same way. And I think what you're bringing out there with like slowing down and talking about this and saying like, you have all these thoughts, some of it might just be bullshit, but also realize like you're engaging with that thought probably because you're trying to connect to something on that other thing because you feel lonely or insecure, whatever the thing was. Maybe you slow down, you stop judging everything. Maybe you stop judging everyone. And shit, maybe in that same breath, you stop judging yourself. As you talked about, Barry, like these lean people, and I've been guilty of it myself. Like, oh my God, I still got this little, 2.5 pounds of body fat here right below my belly button or whatever the fuck, all that shit. And it's like, we're so fucking mean to ourselves, and we're leading from this premise of hate. What if we just shifted it to love, and it's really saying, I'm going to observe. I see those things. And especially if you continue to make decisions all day long, you hit decision fatigue, burnout. Like, go figure.
Yeah.
You're going to probably make some shitty decisions along the way. And you would hope, but the reality is more often than not, people make really bad decisions at the end of the day on the thing that was actually supposed to matter the most. When they're around their family, and they're going to make a big decision about the business they're going to buy, or they're going to buy a house or some financial thing, like things that destroy them for the next decade and a half. Like, everything you're talking about here has a lot of practical long-term impact, though it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to slow down right now and I didn't, feed my need to feel fulfilled for 4.5 seconds or a month or 3 months. Or you talked about that 12 to 14 mark, people start going back into that self-sabotage mode.
Yeah.
Loved everything you're saying.
I love that you put the emphasis on when we have a negative thought coming in, we've got to take action on it. And I see that so often when negative thoughts come in, or negative feelings come in, or something negative comes into our life, we've got to action it. We've got to do something with it so it doesn't happen, or we can change the negative into a positive. The best way of changing a negative into a positive is surrender to it and just let it bugger on past. Keep it going. Trust the process. Surrender, allow, receive. My 4 words that change my life. And it's just allowing it to disappear rather than hanging on to it. I've got to change this thing. I've got to do something with this thing. And then once we grab hold of it, it becomes us. And we absorb that energy of that word or that feeling. And then we carrying it around with us all the time. We just surrender to it and just, oh, there it goes. Whoop. Drifted off into the ether. Oh, I'm going to concentrate on gratitude. That's a lovely word. What am I grateful today? And we hold on to that word. And that word has energy and feelings and emotions to it. And then we absorb all that as well. So we don't have to take action on any negative thing. We don't have to change it into a positive.
Just a thing.
Just a thing.
Nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. It's just a thing.
Which, to that effect, I think scares people even more, because if I assign the meaning and I'm aware of the meaning I assign to it, I have to take full responsibility for the backlash and the consequences.
100%.
I remember
We need to take responsibility for our own lives.
Well, I agree.
I remember when I first realised that, we was at an event called Landmark here in the UK, and it's like a great big massive personal development thing for like 3 days.
It's quite a powerful
It's
thing.
very powerful, and they build you up. Basically that, everything's a story and there's a racket going on. And she was like, at 2:45 on Friday afternoon, because I can't remember what it was, she goes, everybody will understand. And nobody understood. They were arguing with her. Yeah, but I had a gambling problem. She's like, just a story. Yeah, but my dad died of cancer and I feel like this. Just a story. Yeah, but my relationship ended. Just a story. And literally there was almost riots in the room.
Arguments.
And she said this thing. She went, nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. And all of a sudden I sat there and I felt like I was just transported somewhere. I was like, shit, I'm free. I am free. And I got up, and you could all share at the mic. And I got up to the mic, and she said, yeah, would you like to share, Laura? And I went, I feel free. And then I literally sobbed in front of 250 people, like deep guttural sob. And everybody just went, and you could see they all got it as well. And even now I feel emotional, like I could cry, because it was so impactful on me that I could just let go of everything. And in that space, I could create anything that I wanted. And that was so powerful, wasn't it?
It was good.
It was really
Good
powerful. And it's so true, but you have to go through the process.
It was 4 days of telling us we don't know anything, we're all shit. To get to that moment. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to float this out there then. That's where I think a lot of people struggle. You both know I grew up in a cult, and I use that we'll call it a loving statement. Like, It is what it is, just a word. Some people think it's a cult, some people think it's religion, some people think it's the greatest thing. What I've come to look at it as like, it was my path and it had some lessons. We all grew up in a cult in our own sense. I say this because I've heard some people call Landmark a cult too, and I'm just like, it's a thing.
Yeah, they have. Yes, they have.
It is it's a thing that you interact with. Now, anything can turn cultish. That I will not say. Like, I agree with that idea. But that being said, more often than not, in the beginning, what you're talking about, they're just walking around pissing people off, saying like, no, and you're just really running into your own self-limiting belief. You're like, yeah, I know, and like most people don't want to feel like the walls are caving in, and I'm like, I'm wrong. We all were so fighting for ourselves to be right, but the more you resist that, which essentially, in my estimation, is resisting letting go of your past, because you're more often than not, we're fighting our past. We're at battle, as opposed to saying, well, how do I love my past? Well, maybe it's a lesson like, oh, I'm just describing meaning. Well, what's the other side of that meaning? What are some great lessons of our past that actually got you to where you're at? And not only that, might be exactly what propels you, because of that lesson, to create the greatness in your life. Is it all bad? And that is heavy, because that could be assigned to almost any atrocity anybody's ever experienced in their life. That, for anybody who's floating around in a victim mindset right now, that is going to rub them the wrong way. I know that. So if I get some hate mail, it is what it is. I'm anticipating it. But I also want to give you credit, Laura. I got to imagine that's not the first thing you've done before that. You essentially also had to probably do a lot of things that most people probably weren't aware of, to put yourself in a space for that moment, for that person to happen to be the one who said the thing, and you go, oh, I get it now. That's the marketing piece around putting yourself in the proper environments. I think it's like 8 to 12 times before you actually go, yeah, I'll make a purchasing decision, that you have to hear something. So I wanted to give you credit for that, but I love what I heard as you removed the meaning and just said, like, I'm free. I can assign whatever fucking meaning I want to whatever I assign I mean it to. But the better part about you is, and I'm just aware of, like, you're both entrepreneurs. You take full responsibility for your decisions. Like, shit doesn't work out, it's on me, which I think is what most people don't want.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, Barry and I don't stand here today because we're hugely successful in everything we've done. We stand here today because we fucked up, we've made mistakes, we've had disasters in our life, but we've learned from them. I always say to my clients, I'm so happy you're going through this shit. And they're like, why? And I'm like, why is this a great problem to have? And they go, oh, because it's so difficult. And I'm like, no, why is this a great problem to have? And I know it's a Tony Robbins thing, but it is. Why is this a brilliant problem? And how are you going to learn from this? Because once you start turning that, you stop becoming a victim of that circumstance, then you start to become powerful within that. And I know it's very difficult. There's some things that people have faced that are absolutely brutal. We've had some things that have been brutal, and I will admit, some at the moment I'm working through some of those, where I'm challenging that. They're just a little bit more difficult lessons to pull, but I know I will pull that lesson from it, and I've just got to keep working at it.
Well, I love that you shared that piece there. Is like, the work's never done. In fact, I got at my last ayahuasca ceremony, he was sharing, they called their shamans, like their lineage, they called them the Taitas. And the main guy, Taita, I can't remember his name. Anyway, said there's an infinite amount of healing that can be done in this lifetime. And that hit for me, because it's like, yeah, the lesson's going to keep coming up. Probably the thing you struggle with the most when you're at your next new level of vulnerability is going to come right back. And now it's like, how do I go through this chapter again, but with this new set of tools and this new set of awareness? And it's like, it's the same reason why I just read the same book over and over again. It's not like it's going to hit different, not because the information is different, it's because you're arriving at the information different. And you couldn't even see this depth the first time around, or the second, or the fifth, or the whatever.
Yeah. So true. So true. So true.
Accepting what you just said, though, I think is really hard. And I love your vulnerability around, like, we're still going through it. And it's just maybe this small piece now, or this piece, or that piece, or what. It's not about, and whatever. What does success mean on top of that? Like, you and I might have different metrics for success. So I love that perspective there. I think it's really valuable for anybody who's listening. Oh, this doesn't end. And once you accept that it also doesn't end, you can start to enjoy it. Why do I like that this is a problem right now that I'm going through? Wait, what? It seems ass backwards. That doesn't. What? Why would my coach celebrate that you're struggling?
We always say until you're in your box.
Yep.
Until you're in your box, that's when you're learning. And then if you want to go further, then when you're, your energy has gone back to source, you're still learning. Do you know what I mean? But let's not go down that route, because it'd be here for like hours and hours.
Well, when I actually get to come see you guys, or you come here and we all get together and we go on a journey, whatever, we will blast off into the universe with these conversations. Okay. How about that? We cool with that? Yeah.
With a little bit of ayahuasca.
Not for you can, but not for me. Thank you very much.
I mean, Barry, you and I will connect. We'll be good. We'll have a good time. Well, a good time is a relative thing. I don't know if puking and shitting yourself is like considered a good time. The healing is beautiful.
Not my kind of idea. Yeah, it's not my kind of idea of fun. Really,
but it's one of those things that I'm willing to go through to come out the other side and experience it.
That's why we get along. I talked to my wife about it too. She's not in the headspace or ready. Disclaimer for anybody who's listening: I do not promote it. I just say it has to be a full body yes. And you better check a lot of shit beforehand. Like, you need to know where you're getting yourself into. So it is not something to be trifled with. As with any intervention, all interventions need to be taken very seriously, because it does impact a lot of your life. Hence, take responsibility for all your decisions. Make an informed decision. Disclaimer over, so I don't get sued.
Perfect. Agree with that 100%.
But we will blast off in the universe together, because we'll talk. We clearly have checked a few boxes beforehand and have some experiences. I'm taking a look at the time right now. If anybody's listening right now and is like, yo, this superpower couple, they are just phenomenal. I need more of that energy in my life. How would somebody best get in touch with you?
Email me, because Barry doesn't answer his emails.
How do I get on that level? Yo, Barry, I gotta take a page out of your book, brother.
So I'll send it. Who'd you send it to, Barry? Yeah, just send it to me. So yeah, my email, laura@rocksolidhealth.co.uk. Or come over and check me out on LinkedIn. We've got a link there where you can take the burnout self-assessment, and you can see where your energy levels are at the moment. So that's a pretty cool little thing to do. Like, people love a test, don't they?
We love self-assessment at the end of the day. As much as people like, oh, I'm not about myself. It's like, yeah, you are. You are your most important person in your life, and you want to know more about yourself. It is what it is. Cool. Then you can make a better informed decision about like what lines up with you. So cool. That is awesome. I love it. I love it. Parting words of wisdom, lessons, thoughts you want to drop, mic drop moments you want to put. I'll let each of you give your mic drop moment to close this thing out.
Go on, Baz.
Look at that. Come on with something, husband. Now.
Don't take life so seriously. It's not over until it's over. And I think one thing I'd love to say to you guys is, if you can help somebody, please help them. Just give a little bit of your time, a little bit of money, whatever it is, how you feel you can help somebody out. If you can, you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's your mum saying, isn't it? That's your mum saying.
Yep.
We got it on our business cards on Superhero
My
ones.
mum passed away in January last year, and she left us with that thought: if you can help someone, you should. Yeah. So that's one of our little mantras.
A little hashtag.
Yeah.
My one would be, whatever you're going through, whatever shit you're going through at the moment, stop thinking about the past or the future, and just come back to the present moment and do something that you love to do. Whether it's watching a funny film or spending some time outside.
Patch Adams.
Yeah, watch that and come back to the present moment, and you'll be safe.
Guys, I love you. I just love you both. You're amazing people. I'm grateful that you both wandered into my life. I guess I have Kelly West, I believe, is the one I have to thank for that introduction. So you guys are fantastic. Everybody who's listening, please go check them out. Like, it's all going to be in the show notes. So go follow the links. It'll all be there. Guys, I love you. I can't wait to see where the rest of this relationship and friendship goes. You're just amazing. Well, we could have our dogs and cats all get along. My dog kind of acts like a cat in and of himself, unless he's being real sassy, and then he tries to be a tough guy with big dogs outside. But that's another
Of
ball of wax.
course.
Guys, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being part of the show today. Everybody, go check them out. Until next time, I remind you to love everybody.